Hi, everybody. I had a few separate goals when I started this channel. One of them was to keep myself accountable. If I'm going to call myself a non-practicing Catholic, then I should be sure that Catholicism is false. I should engage in Catholic discourse with Catholics who like to discuss Catholic philosophy. Another goal was just to build a community for ex-trads like me. But then another goal was to call out some of the more extreme sides of Catholicism. Catholicism, and particularly traditional Catholicism, has become increasingly political and increasingly aggressive. The Q-Anonization of trad Catholicism is in full swing. And this is dangerous. Traditional Catholicism is growing. It's popular. It's a trend. And that is the subject of the video that we are reviewing today. Today I'll be responding to select moments from the hour-long video The Week, the publication, calls Catholicism Biggest Trend of 2022 by Timothy Gordon of the Retrograde podcast. Tim makes some points that I think should be responded to by an ex-trad. And he makes some claims that are, I'll call them dangerous, and he makes other claims that are just flat out wrong. This video is about a month old at this point, so maybe I'm not the most timely reviewer here. But nonetheless, when I saw it, I thought that it warranted a response. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the video. And I'm going to start with the section that Tim Gordon calls the
Pius the 10th or Pius the 5th or Leo the 13th.
The video.
Substantiation of the
Switch over to the other view.
Substantiation of the principle. And things are, in fact, worse now than they've ever been. And young people, Michael Malice was talking to someone, Charlie Kirk, about this a couple weeks ago. Young people get red-pilled quicker at age 18, 19, 20 than they did when I was 18, 19, 20. And why? This has to do with the thesis of today's topic, that Catholicism is, in fact, kind of trending.
The thesis of today's video is that Catholicism is trending, and why does Mr. Gordon think that Catholicism is trending?
Because when the conditions are worse and more dire, the need is more exigent and in some sense more clear.
So, Tim's thesis for this video is that Catholicism, in particular trad Catholicism, is growing because times are bad. Not only are times bad, but they're worse than ever before. And the normies don't get it. Let's go to the next clip where Tim says that the normies, they just don't get it.
For Aristotle. So things have gotten worse over the last 10 years than they've ever been. This culminates with transsexualism, and normie conservatives and normie Christians are surprised.
Normie Christians and normie conservatives are surprised that things have gotten way worse, way worse. What does Tim mean when he says that things have gotten worse? By looking at most statistics, things are getting better. Violent crime is down over the past 30 years. Divorce is lower than it was over the last 30 years. Things are just getting better. People have more rights today. Yes, there's bad things that are happening, but by and large, things are better today than they ever have been in the past. So what's Tim talking about? What's getting worse? Well, I'll argue that homophobia is getting worse, at least in traditional Catholicism. But I think Tim Gordon thinks that things are getting worse, and partially because gay people are getting more rights.
Understands the truth, like an Ed Fazer or an Eleanor Stump, an Aristotomist would understand. This is precisely when gender ideology pops up. And this is the ultimate attack on the family, as LifeSite News is always pointing out. If you think bodies are unimportant, then you're going to believe that men can act like women, like a feminist, that men and women can act interchangeably in the bedroom like a homosexualist, and that men and women can actually become one another should they so want to, like a transsexualist.
Notice that Tim is afraid to use the word gay. He won't even say gay. He'll say homosexualist. Why? Why do you think he won't say the word gay? Well, I have a couple ideas. I think, for one, it's a tribalistic thing. All of these hardcore macho men, traditionalist Catholics, can recognize each other by the kind of speech that they use. And I'm not talking about Latin. I'm talking about rude or pejorative terms for gay people. And it's not just gay people, they'll use words like apostate, and, I try to reclaim that word a little bit. I'm not, afraid to be called an apostate, but a homosexualist, you really are stuck in the 1940s, aren't you, Tim? I mean, it's odd, it's weird, and he's doing it, I think, because he wants to be readily identified as part of the tribe, part of the traditional Catholic tribe. I think that he's also afraid to use the word gay because gay people are cool with the word gay. And he doesn't want to be polite. He wants to treat them like they are other than, and he wants to make sure that that he thinks that gay people are gross. I think that's part of it too. Tim's the kind of person who use the word sodomite too, so that that I think it's a sin. Okay, I don't think that you're increasing the level of discourse at all, but I don't think that people like Tim are interested in raising the level of discourse. I think that people like Tim and these other rad trad Catholics are far less interested in raising the level of discourse and far more interested in isolating and then building a community of other isolated people who all see the world in the same way. And they do this by uniting around certain phrases and words that they can use to identify each other. This is what I'm calling the Q-Anonization of trad Catholicism. And speaking of the Q-Anonization of trad Catholicism, the whole grooming thing is also big in trad Catholicism, which is weird. And this video is a really good example of that. Let's let Tim explain what he thinks of
when the groomers were deliberately infiltrated in, and the good priests were vanished by Stalin and the Marxists and the Masons. That's when the grooming started. Is that shocking? That groomers bring with them grooming? With groomers come grooming. Is that a conspiratorial politics and culture? Tough guy?
And so notice is it conspiratorial to say that groomers groom people? No, that's a tautology, Tim. Groomers are people who groom. It's not rocket science.
Hement mekta? No, that's just common sense. When you bring groomers into the faith, you get grooming. And this guy says it. He's like, we like the groomers culture. In so many words, he says it.
No, Tim. Hement meta does not say that he likes grooming culture. This is what I call the conflation of the word groomer with the word gay. They are not the same. Tim, you know this, and you do this on purpose. This is why I'm calling the traditional Catholic movement dangerous, because you conflate words like groomer and gay on purpose. Groomer is somebody who befriends underage people in order to exploit them sexually. Gay is someone who's attracted to somebody of the same gender. They are not the same thing. In fact, they are so much so not the same thing that we can look into some statistics about it. Let's analyze some actual evidence. And I will zoom in here. Let's look up some facts about homosexuality and child molestation. So people in the traditionalist Catholic movement like to conflate the two words as if they mean the same thing. And why? Maybe because their priests have been grooming altar boys. Not necessarily in crazy numbers, but certainly there have been some priests who groom altar boys. And so, because these priests are grooming altar boys, these traditionalist Catholics just want to insist that all groomers are gay. That's not true. If we read through this journal article, we will see that actually it's something like 80% of groomers are heterosexual. Now, 20% of the population, or 20% of people who groomers, are not hetero. So they're either bi or they're gay. And that is a higher percentage than the rest of the population. But guess what's even worse than that? Something like 95% of groomers are male. Only 50% of the population is male. So the if your argument here is that gay people are groomers more so than hetero people, and that's why we need to keep gay people out of the priesthood or something like that, I'm not sure if that's the argument that you're making, but if it is, then should you just keep all men out of the priesthood since they're far more likely to be groomers? I don't think that you want to go there. I think that you want to otherize gay people, and so you're doing that by conflating the word groomer with the word gay when they are not the same thing. They are not the same thing at all, and you're doing it because you are building a tribe, because you're not interested in the truth, and because you want to be macho. That's part of it too. In fact, that's the part that I would like to go to next, is this weird machismo that the traditionalist Catholic movement has. It's super weird. Traditionalist Catholics, the men anyway, have to be man's men. Let's take a look at this next clip where
I want to get to this passage about
gets into the manliness.
A Muslim saying, "Hey, if anything's gonna trend, if you want hardcore stuff, you should be Muslim because I fast 30 days of the year during Ramadan for 12 or 14 hours, bub. I just had Father Allen on this show who fasted for 57 days, nothing but water. Get real, the Ramadan fast. Get out of here, man. Also, I fast every Monday and every Wednesday of the entire year, unless I'm really sick or something. And again, there are Catholics that do way more than me.
Oh, Muslims, you think that your religion is manly? Mine is much manlier. You think that Ramadan is hard? Well, I voluntarily fast a lot more often than my religion commands me. So first of all, Tim, I don't get how this argument works. So just because you voluntarily fast, your religion does not make you fast on Mondays and Fridays. Your religion doesn't even require you to give up meat on Fridays anymore. I grew up not eating meat on Fridays. Do you know how easy that is to do? You have pizza for dinner. You get a nice cheese pizza or a veggie pizza. We had pizza for dinner every Friday growing up. Oh no, the horror! I couldn't have meat on my pizza. Tim, this isn't hard. It's not hard at all. I eat less meat now than I did when I was a Catholic, not eating meat on Fridays. Tim, because you voluntarily fast, that does not make Catholicism more manly than Islam. And what does fasting have to do with manliness anyway? And why is it so important to be so manly? What does this have to do with what's true? Or what's going to get you to heaven? Do you think that effeminate men who lead virtuous lives and Catholic effeminate men who lead virtuous lives and don't commit mortal sins, do you think that they're not getting to heaven? Or is their place in heaven diminished because they don't like sports? Because they read too many books? It's bizarre. And again, it's the tribalism. This video is just an advertisement for everything wrong with the Tradi Catholic movement. I think that Tim sums up why the trad movement is growing and why so many people are attracted to it in this next clip.
Libertarian, who was talking about this recently? Just listening to someone talk about this. Now, at the tech outpost, if you want to be edgy, you're just like, I'm a trad Catholic. And it's a thing. Like I said, it's a real moment for trad Catholicism.
Trad Catholicism is having a moment. That's undeniable. Tim, you're right. And it's edgy. It is edgy. But it's edgy for all the wrong reasons. The edgy movement in the 1990s was anti-corporation, the edgy movement of the 1990s was fighting for rights for gay folks. It was fighting for people to have more rights, but instead, this traditionalist Catholic edgy movement just seems to be about trying to take rights away from people, otherizing, building tribes. It's weird and counterproductive. And again, I kind of hate to use the word because it's overused, but frankly, I think it's dangerous. The traditionalist Catholic movement, you guys are doing things wrong. I wish that you were doing things differently. And lastly, I just want to end on something that I thought was kind of weird and kind of just wrong. But this struck me, and if you know my personal story, you'll know why this struck me. But let me share this one last clip.
That we're to consume, that's reactionary chic. Not having sex till you're married, that's just common sense. Idiots, have you seen that? Have you?
His battery died, and he goes on to explain that later. But not having sex till you're married is common sense. Idiot. Is it? Is it really common sense? Why don't we take a look at some statistics and see just how common this sense is? This article that I'm sharing is from 2002. It's a little old. It's 20 years old at this point. But I doubt that this has changed that much. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. I can just make this bigger. This is a graph that shows the amount of sex that people are having. It shows the amount of people at each age that have had this kind of sex. So the straight line is just regular sex. The second line right below it is premarital sex, and the line right under that is married sex. So if you'll look at it, something like 80% of 20-year-olds have had sex altogether, but like 78% or something of 18-year-olds have had unmarried sex. And like 2% of 18-year-olds have had married sex, because 18-year-olds are generally not married. The difference gets way shorter by the time you're 44. What I mean by that is the distance between the unmarried sex and the married sex closes by the time you get to 44. It looks like it's only about 10 or 15% different. But for the vast majority of people's lives, people are having unmarried premarital sex. How common is this common sense? Evidently not that common. The article actually goes on to say that by the time that the average person hits 44, 96% of males and 94% of females have had premarital sex. 96% of males and 94% of females. And we're going to call this common sense. Tim, I don't think that you know what the word common means. I'm going to end it there. Tim, I think you were wrong on a couple of things. I think the traditional Catholic movement is being is behaving in dangerously similar ways to QAnon. Keep in mind that Tim attended the stole the election rally in DC after Biden was elected. So it's not a stretch to say that at least Tim Gordon brand trad Catholicism is QAnon adjacent, but I think it's dangerous. I think it's growing. I think it's a growing problem. I think it's tribalistic. I think it's counterproductive, and I hope that it stops. With that, I've been your host, Kevin on Tradicath. Ex-Catholic, maybe still Catholic, kind of depends on your definition. And until next time.